self-destruct in 20 seconds. This is your last chance to push the cancellation button.
Cancellation button? Hurry!
Where is it? Where is it?
It's gotta be here. Out of order! Fuck!
Even in the future, nothing works.
This ship will self-destruct in exactly 10 seconds. Counting down. 10, 9, 8, 6.
6! What happened to 7?
Just kidding.
There's the other end! Faster!
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Everybody, and welcome to the Woodshed. This is your host, Leo, and I'm always followed by my friend and cohort, one Hunter Horn. How you doing today, Hunter?
Doing well, Leon. How about yourself?
Oh, man, I'm just trying to hold up as best as I can as I'm getting ready to go ahead and start actually talking about the very first thing that I have in mind. So we'll come right back to Hunter. But first, I got to get something slightly off my chest. And let's start off with the fact that, well, I got to sit down with my friends in the Heisman house. In my honest opinion, this award is an overhyped and underappreciated dust collector. Here's a little history, though. The Heisman Memorial Trophy was established in 1935. It is to be annually given to the most outstanding player in college football. Winners epitomize great ability, combined with diligence, perseverance, and hard work. So, should a Heisman recipient add this meritorious award to their draft stock? Well, fans of the gridiron, Leo here is going to tell you exactly where in the case this trophy should go. Here are just some statistics. There have been 11 Super Bowl winners that have Heisman trophies. And I am going to count Reggie Bush, even though his was taken away from him. And it would have been 12 had Joe Burrow won his Super Bowl. Out of the 11, and I'll actually say out of the 10 actual Super Bowl recipients of the Heisman Trophy, they are all Hall of Famers. However, only one player has had a Heisman, a national championship, a Super Bowl, and has been a first ballot Hall of Famer, one Marcus Allen. So let me get this straight. The Heisman is almost 100 years old. The Super Bowl has been around for a little bit more than half that time, and 10 is the number we have left. No wonder the anomaly of what would have been Joe Burrow winning a Super Bowl got everyone so excited. So as we look at Big Penix energy, the second coming of Marvin Harrison, the lack of controversy, Jordan Travis, and some guy who looked good against Billy Napier's Gators, Jaden Daniels, let's remember something real. I expect nothing out of this Heisman class. So as always, take a deep breath and forget that there's even a Heisman race to begin with. And if you do draft a Heisman winner, make it a footnote in their resume. Hunter, I don't think I was being too mean, was I?
Harsh, but it's the truth. Aside from Big Penix energy, which, I really like, by the way,
You're welcome.
the Heisman class is very weak this year. Jordan Travis is up and down. I guess that's, I would say the second front runner out of the QB class. You could have an argument for maybe Drake May, but it's going to be Penix this year. It's going to be Penix. And to be honest with you, and it's quite a shame because he deserves good competition for the Heisman. I believe Penix will also make the jump to the NFL. He looks like a good system QB. He gets in the right situation. I really think he could do well, but not if the Giants draft him.
I understand that, and I do get that to a certain extent, because I think the Giants really should look at just building an offensive line and actually, playing football, but that's beside the point. I think it should be Penix and it shouldn't be Marvin Harrison Jr., but I speak as an Irishman who doesn't want another USC Trojan winning a Heisman. I do like Marvin Harrison Jr., though. I do think he is something special, really, out of the backfield. But and I'm sorry, that's Ohio State. Please Forgive me. That's OSU. But, as far as like what some players can do, and I'm thinking, of course, of Jerry Rice Jr., who's sitting at USC, and that's going to be a phenom of talent himself. However, when we're looking at wide receivers who win the Heisman, it's not. But to think that the only Heisman who's won a national championship, a Super Bowl, and is a first ballot Hall of Famer was a running back, was Marcus Allen. And I think that's basically what they're waiting for. Like maybe a couple of Super Bowl winning quarterbacks, one of them being Johnny Unitas was among the list. Also Doak, another Notre Dame standout. But then again, the last wide receiver that actually won a Super Bowl and was a Heisman winner was Tim Brown out of Notre Dame. I don't mean to be, I'm bragging here.
Yeah, you bring up all these
Yeah,
Notre
I'm bringing
Dame
all these
players here.
Irishmen, but it's not
I
like,
wonder why.
and we could talk about Ken Dorsey. Oh man, I guess
The Bills
all over
said,
the place.
man.
But believe it or not, the last Heisman Trophy winner, and check this out, who actually won a Super Bowl was Charles Woodson back in 2011.
Wow.
Yeah, and he was actually the first
Almost
and
like
only defensive player to win a Heisman. So
almost like it's like a curse to win the Heisman.
that, and I guess that's the point. I'm not really making that the point exactly, but I'm making it as though we overhype the Heisman for what it should translate to the pros. I don't think that's should always be the case. I think it's a good meritorious award, but it basically it shouldn't transfer over to your talent level in the NFL because everybody knows it's next level in the NFL.
Absolutely.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and give one more little shout out to my friends in the NCAA, and we'll be right back, Hunter. Okay. So are coaches really getting fired? I mean, are they really? So Texas A&M has decided to part ways 2 years too late with their head coach. However, after this lackluster performance and big talk, Jimbo walks out with a whopping $75 million buyout. Over in Mississippi State, Zach Arnett got tossed out on his ass. And just because it's not $75 million, no one's batting an eyelash at his nearly $4 million exit. So this takes me back to why the NIL and all the talk that the NIL and the transfer portal are hurting college football. But it all started with these exuberant deals made to coaches who get to walk away into early retirement only to move into head coaching jobs in the NFL or coordinator positions at other schools. Hunter, I know I'm going to be burning this hole into your head going after the Hurricanes like I do, but come on. Everybody is marveling at what a great defense Notre Dame has and what a good job Al Golden has done, but no one remembers the $2 million he walked away with his $6 million from his exit out of the University of Miami. In my most humble opinion, underperforming coaches shouldn't be bought out. Instead, they should return every mediocre cent they produce compared to the season they promised. While not every season can be a championship season, coaches that are at least promising to contend should produce contenders. If not, they should either get pay reductions or have to refund some of their checks back to the school. And however, this is not just the fault of coaches. This is the fault of the schools that pay these coaches to produce based on investment. While schools are charging through the nose for a seat to watch under 500 teams perform, and Lord knows what they're paying for in parking. This all goes back to my favorite organization, the NCAA, because the NCAA has the ability to put a cap and an end to all this madness. Instead, they punish the fans and the players. They continue to allow coaches to take these massive salaries, and the schools screw over fans with ridiculous pricing. All in all, to make the stadiums fit less people and to place ads on everything. Don't worry and don't look now. Soon enough, you won't be able to tell what school you're rooting for with all the NCAA logos and sponsorship logos all over the helmets. While some fans can be mad at the transfer portal and the NIA, don't forget who really started this. The schools, the coaches, and our friends over at the NCAA. Hunter, anything you want to add, sir?
To the NCAA coaches being fired? Let's see. Well, you've got Jimbo Fisher, who just took Texas A&M for a ride. And I really like how they had that plaque already made for him. And they were like, you just have to put in the year. And he's like, I'm going to win a bunch. And he just swindled them for like $70 million. But at the same time, you sign a contract. You got to pay up your dues. Do I believe these coaches should get this money? No, but, it's hard when you sign up thinking you're moving there for 6-7 years and you're doing all of this, and then 2 years the program doesn't go right. Fans are kind of hostile, so you gotta field both sides of the argument. But at the end of the day, your job is to win. If you're brought in to win and you're not winning, no, you should not be getting any money. Come on, let's be real here.
I know. Let's be realistic. I think that's basically where we get now. Is it fair to fire coaches now that we're going to have a 12-team playoff? And to join us for that conjecture is a very good and near and dear friend to us, one Cole Kostreva. How's it going, Cole?
I'm doing good. How about you guys?
Oh, we're doing all right here. Hold it up.
Doing good.
That's good.
So Cole, I'll ask you this question since you've been listening to, me getting on all these Heisman hopefuls and going on after the coaches. Does anything really change with a 12-team playoff in what we have now for expectations? Because a coach can actually say, listen, we may not have won the national championship, but at least we were 1 in 12 teams to make the college football playoff.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point because you have to also think about it from the perspective of how NFL teams would say, like, oh, yeah, maybe you don't win the Super Bowl, but you at least make the playoffs, because the NFL playoffs used to be 12 teams as well. I mean, now it's 14, but if you hire a coach and like try to figure out what exactly the season you're aiming for is, I guess it does change a little bit, but if you're still aiming for a national championship, at least you have like that kind of security blanket to say that you made it into the top 12 teams. But I mean, it still wouldn't really make that huge of a difference, because for the longest time, it's been just 4 teams to make the playoffs. So if you're not in the top 4, your chances of winning the national championship would still be there, wouldn't necessarily be as high as if you were one of those top ranked teams.
All right. And what about you, Hunter? What are you thinking?
Well, I think it was done to appease teams that, lose a wonky game in, let's say, a conference final, or at the end of the season. As you know, Michigan and Ohio play each other at the end of the seasons. You've got Georgia and Alabama that will always play each other, it seems like, in the SEC conference and all of that. And I think this was more to appease those teams losing and then falling out right out of the end, rather than them having to fight over, oh, well, this team just lost, but we can't drop them that much, and then having to deal with the backlash from the fans and everything. I think this was done to appease that. Plus, there are teams out there that would have one loss due to, a bad play, or even, God forbid, a missed field goal that you would say are like, whoa, man, they're way better. Like, I'll be honest with you. Last year, you had TCU, and the first game they seemed like they belonged, but then they got up there against Georgia, and you really saw the full-on gap between, the Big 12 and the SEC. And Georgia cruised to that one, That's all I really got to say about that.
So what you'll argue, and maybe what I'll argue alongside with you, is that this should close the gap between how some conferences are better than others.
Well, I wouldn't say close the gap, but it would be more like it would be more like, you'll have the better teams consistently. You get to these playoff games and you might have had a team like, I'm just going to take Alabama, right? They're number 8 right now, or number 7, right? If we had a 12-team playoff, I would not want to play Alabama right now, how they are.
Right.
They're starting to get it together. They're looking much better, more cohesive. their quarterback's starting to really learn how to spread out the ball. I would not want to play Alabama right now.
Right.
But Alabama's got losses, so they're not going to sniff the college football playoff
Right. As far as this year is concerned.
this year.
But Cole, would then you say that if it does kind of bring out, instead of it bringing, could we honestly have like almost to where like 6 teams are in the college football playoff are in one conference? Wouldn't that still kind of like, wouldn't that take away the flair, or would that just,
I mean, I feel
it's
like
ratings
it
is
would
ratings?
take away a little bit of the flair. I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but like,
No, go ahead.
still, if you have a few teams from like not one of the major conferences make the college football playoffs and like them actually make a run, then I feel like that wouldn't take as much flair off those years as it would of let's just say like 10 out of like the Pac-12 were to make the college football playoffs and like the other 2 teams were to do basically nothing. Then it probably would take away some of the flair. But if you're talking about where it's like kind of like a half of like one conference and half of like a few others, and like those few others actually do a little bit of damage, maybe make an upset or 2, then I mean, I feel like that's kind of what college football is aiming towards a little bit, even though it's still like would kind of like showcase the power of the larger and more like accomplished conferences. But yeah,
Right. Because we do have a competitive ACC, we have a competitive SEC. In the Big 12, in reality, you can only name like 3 teams: Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State.
Yeah, that's the Big Ten.
Yeah, that's the Big 10. In in the Big 12, which is basically dissolving now that Texas and Oklahoma are leaving.
Yeah.
I mean, what, the best team's going to be Nebraska? All right. Oklahoma State. Yeah. All right. Let's see where that goes. I think a lot of power conferences will start actually becoming group of 5 conferences in reality.
That's true.
But let's see where it goes. I mean, hopefully, what I'm hoping for is that they'll take the bowl series to the group of 5 and actually institute an actual Power 5 like set of conferences with teams that need to, like Vanderbilt doesn't need to be in the SEC. Go join a group of 5. Thanks for playing. Here's your participation trophy. Get out.
That's very true.
And
yeah, they haven't competed for,
like Notre Dame should go join a group of 5 conference, because they have not been recruiting, nor have they been coaching well, nor they've been playing well, even though they've been injured. But they're teams that, they should join the SEC, the ACE. No, you got to earn your spot, I think, to play in the Power 5, especially if you're going to have a 12-team playoff like this. Whereas,
so you think there should be relegation?
There should be. At one point, there will need to be, because everybody's always going to. Okay, so the playoff was meant to stop at one point. It was meant to kind of end the possibility of, well, who really deserves the national championship, because the bowl series committee, they would just pick whoever they wanted, whenever they wanted, however they wanted. And then you would have 5 or 6 teams that were undefeated, but they only picked their 2 to contend for a national championship. In reality, it was like 3 or 4, but it didn't matter. Everybody would be like, well, they stole it from the 04 Auburn Tigers. And it's like, you can argue that all you want, but the playoff was meant to eliminate that argument. My argument when they made the playoff, and my argument even to this day, was that it wasn't enough teams, that it should have been 6. They doubled and they said, oh yeah, Leo, we'll take what you gain, and just double down on that, So, guys, gentlemen, thank you so much for us having this first half of the show. And just to commemorate old times, yes, it is time for us to talk some halftime.
And down the hallway here, we have another.
And with that, I think it is time to talk NFL. The NFL, especially the AFC, has found its parity. Though the Dolphins and Chiefs seem to be on top of their divisions, the Bills can still threaten Miami if they ever get their head out of their butt, and especially after now dropping their offensive coordinator, Ken Dorsey. And though not much is expected out of Raider Nation, the Chiefs are actually looking at the NFC North, where there is a 3-team slugfest for first place. Yet we come back to what I was speaking to you guys about earlier. Here we have yet another Heisman candidate who did not win, being on the receiving end of grand accolades. Though I was not a fan of one C.J. Stroud, it is important to give a man his due. What he has done in Houston is nothing short of miraculous. What would have been a Jaguar-dominated division is now a competition worth noting. And now that we have to do that, coming to the crux of the matter. The NFC. While 3 divisions have 2 hopefuls apiece, the fact is the NFC South and the rest of the conference looks like a 3-legged dog running downhill into a blender testing facility. And don't get me started on how the Giants shouldn't have paid that Eli Manning impersonator a dime. While we are looking at a declining talent pool, decimated fan base, and coaches giving themselves mixed signals, let me help you out. These $1 million babies don't care how loud you yell at the TV. At the end of the season, they get paid. When they're endorsing a product on TV or on the radio and over on their favorite podcast, the result is the same. They get paid, and you, the fan, get to suffer. Well, here's a way to get around that. Cheer the sport and not the team. Take some of that bro advice and hate the player and not the game. Draft some unknown tight end as the first pick of your fantasy draft. Bet on which of these babies will stub a toe and be out for the whole season. In other words, stop caring and enjoy the game. After all, C.J. Stroud may make the playoffs, and Caleb Williams and the next Heisman winner will screw over the next team that drafts them. Guys, thoughts, questions, concerns?
Well, that analysis kind of makes me not want the Bears to draft Caleb Williams. And it is pretty interesting, like how I didn't actually expect CJ Stroud to be as good as he was or has been so far this year. But I mean, 1, he's in the MVP conversation now. 2, his team is actually currently in the playoffs, especially since the Bills have dropped a decent amount of their last few games. And just really crazy to think about, like a team that you didn't expect to compete for a playoff spot all year in the Houston Texans now actually has a playoff spot right now.
And Hunter, do you think that that now that the Bills are dropping off, this is really I mean, you did predict them going, 32-0 and all of that, but they are at the top of their division. How do you feel right about now? I mean, think about it. They're 6-3, and so is almost everybody in the NFC, in the AFC North.
Well, the Dolphins have to figure out how to beat good teams. For some reason, they're in these close games. I mean, the Chiefs' offense only put 14 points on us. We missed a few field goals. Tyreek fumbled the ball, got picked up, scooped in. But that's what makes a difference between a win and a loss. And they've got to figure out how to beat teams with a winning record. They have no problem beating up on these, inferior teams. Even when they fall behind early on, the offense is incredible. That zone run that McDaniels has cooked up, and he's a great play caller, let me tell you. I really think the Dolphins have found, like the next Shula, basically. But gosh, I got to circle back to the Texans because, Cole, I told you to pick them up. So that way we could avoid someone else from picking up Stroud. I expected him to be this good. And it's really nice to see for the Texans because they haven't had a good quarterback since, Matthew Schaub. And that's even a stretch to say that was a good quarterback. So, I really think the franchise is looking up and, they give those Jaguars a real good competition for the division. And especially if the Bills fall off now, they could sneak in, grab a wild card spot. And you never know. But it's really not as big as a surprise as it should be because the Texans have also surrounded C.J. Stroud with a lot of weapons. One, they've got a good run game. I know Damon Pierce will be back. You've got Dalton Schultz at tight end. He's proven there at the Cowboys that he can handle volume. He can catch the ball when it needs to be caught. And I really like this, this Tank Dell guy they've got. They've got the Nico Collins as well. Well, not Nico Collins. They've got Nico Brown and Collins, and they've really surrounded him with weapons and big targets with long arms that can go up, catch these balls that he's throwing. And let me tell you, anytime you throw for more than 450 yards and 5 touchdowns, you're doing something right.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think you guys have been able. You guys have probably said it better than I did, which is awesome. And so, with all of that, we've seen a lot of different things happening in the NFL. One of the biggest changes we've noticed is how many injuries there are at this point to the midseason. Some have been season-ending injuries, others have been just a couple of weeks, and hopefully a lot of these teams will get back their guys before the postseason starts. But Cole, which injury do you stands out the most this season?
I might be a little biased based on my fantasy football team, but I did in fact draft Justin Jefferson first overall. And as a Bears fan, it kind of pains me to say it that I hope he comes back soon. But for my fantasy football league, I do hope he comes back soon, despite the fact that I'm 3-2 with him and 3-2 without him. And that almost was 4-1 because I scored the second most amount of points in my league one week, but still lost.
All right. How about you, Hunter? Which injury stands out to you the most this season?
The most this season?
Yes.
The most out of all the games that have taken place.
Well, personally for you, or the most for the NFL, however you decide to want.
Personally, it's got to
answer
be
that
Aaron
question.
Rodgers. It's got to be the 45 seconds, into the game, pops his Achilles, which is, it's something to bring up because aside from J.K. Dobbins, he's just an anomaly. He gets hurt week 1 every season. He had one good season, and then for 5 straight years, I've watched somebody draft him early, and then they're like, yo, I got J.K. Dobbins, man, watch sleeper of the year, and he blows his knee or his hamstring or his Achilles this year. First game, literally first drive, every time. So we can't count him. But we have to notice here that Aaron Rodgers, no contact, popped his friggin' Achilles, right? And then you've got Kirk Cousins, who popped his Achilles, no contact. And you know what the common denominator with both of those is it happened on artificial turf. And as you know, this artificial turf does not give like regular grass does. So when you need something that gives and the grass isn't giving, well, the muscles are going to give. And I really think the NFL needs to crack down on this and look into the synthetic fields and actually spend the money that they have. I'm talking these teams make billions of dollars a year, all right? They're already spending hundreds of millions of dollars to take care of their athletes. Put some real grass down. Come on. It's not that hard. It creates jobs. It's good for the economy.
It's good for the environment too.
It's good for the environment.
Except unless you paint it blue, then it kills birds. Yeah. Listen, I think the early season injuries to me always will stand out. The Ramsey injury to me really stood out because I think that negatively affected the start the Dolphins had. I think they would have gotten off to a stronger start had Ramsey stayed healthy throughout the year, honestly. And I think they're and then assuming that that Aaron would not have been injured, I think it would make for a little bit better play. But I gotta say, their current starter right now, he's doing a good job taking care of that team. And now Aaron's talking about replacing him for the postseason. How cute, right? Make the postseason first, guy.
Well, I wouldn't say Zach Wilson took care of the Jets. I would say Zach Wilson hung around to play for the Jets. But the Jets are not in good shape with Zach Wilson. And it kills me because I drafted Garrett Wilson thinking, okay, he's going to have Aaron Rodgers feeding him the ball. This guy's a bona fide wide receiver 1 this year. And 45 seconds into it, that was the most tragic thing that happened in New York since 9/11, man.
Oh, my gosh. Okay. Well, then, I'm going to go ahead and then move this on to the NBA. And so here we go. I have a little bit of a bold prediction to make, and I hope nobody really minds me saying this, or, you know, but it's very simple. I believe that Zion will be traded in the midseason. Now, here I have my reasons. I do have my reasons. So I'm going to go ahead and I can always remember one way or another what it felt like to be a decent player on a team, mainly because my size and stature often made me the last pick. No worries and have no pity. I have come to terms with this. As a matter of fact, I celebrate it now more than ever. Why? Because it doesn't affect my overall performance. And I'm still going to do what my body will tell me to do. I've learned this as I've gotten older. And I'm not going to back down from a challenge. This is the ability to have a sense of mental toughness. Some guys have it and some guys don't. Now, this isn't all about mental toughness, but it's about the value of when you get picked. Somehow, when you get picked, it should determine your overall value to the team that selected you. So, to the matter at hand, it wasn't long ago when several sports commentators and analysts were upset about Zion Williamson not getting picked up by the New York Knicks. The only thing that proves my point even further in our draft stock, but in any sport, not just basketball. However, I am going to stick to the NBA on this case. It is time we realize that being the best in college or in the minors will not guarantee any immediate galvanizing results. Zion, in his past 5 seasons with the Pelicans, didn't even get a chance to participate in their minor postseason run due to a season-ending foot injury. And upon his return, a new coaching staff has changed the scheme, and Zion is having a hard time adjusting. Now only averaging 20 points a game, Zion is struggling to ever being able to live up to his hype. With all that said, Zion is not the only story throughout sports history that's had bumps in the road. So it is my prediction that the Pelicans might consider trading Zion, and hopefully he can choose wherever he wants to go. After all, that's the way it's done in the NBA. But how Zion finishes his career is solely up to him. And for that matter, any player in any sport, the key in the end was not the talent that got them there, but the mental toughness that it will take for them to reach their desired end. Cole, I can't feel all alone in this.
Okay, so I definitely think Zion could be a midseason trade. I haven't really thought about it too much, especially since, I mean, I thought the New York Knicks were going to get the first overall pick just like a bunch of other people did. And then when the Pelicans got it, I mean, it just was a major surprise to everyone that was involved. And Zion did end up getting drafted to the New Orleans Pelicans. So, I mean, like, he has done at least fairly well in the NBA, but maybe not up to like his standard or hype that he got in college and even in high school, like you said. So, I mean, he definitely could be a midseason trade, but it just really would have to depend on what team would want to take a chance on him and exactly what the New Orleans Pelicans would want to get in return for Zion Williamson.
All right. And so I think in my sticking to Zion Williams, that being my one prediction, it's not to diminish him as a player. I just think that sometimes we can give a little too much hype to some of these guys when we draft them in the position in which we draft them. But I mean, what do you think about the performance so far of one Anthony Edwards?
Well, see, the thing is, I haven't really been paying attention to the NBA as much this season, which is kind of funny because I am in a fantasy basketball league, but I do not check that as often as I should. What's that?
For shame, for shame. No, listen, I'll still stand by. When I honestly think about the NBA this early in the season, it's still exhibition ball. Everybody's still trying to get hot. But Anthony Edwards looks good, and it looks like Hunter he's like dying for some words here. Give it.
Anthony Edwards does not look good. You know, people try to say that like he's a mid-range assassin and this, that, and the other, but dude hasn't shot above 41% for the mid-range. Guys, I believe he's shooting at 72% from the free throw lane. How is that a mid-range assassin? Tell me that.
Yeah, I listen.
You know,
As
he's a
far as
Georgia product. He's not bad, but
right. Listen, I think when it comes to right now, everybody is remember all these guys, they come from other leagues still playing, but when it comes to the NBA, it's just a different speed, and so they have to kind of play catch up. They don't take their D League or their preseason serious at all whatsoever. So you're always going to end up with guys that end up with stuffy starts. For me, I think right now one of the big stories is the fact that Steph Curry is out. So early in the season, it's not always a good thing because that means he's going to have fatigue issues come the end of the season. Cole, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree, especially since some of the players on my fantasy basketball league that I don't check that often. I know, like Devin Booker even got hurt, and even though I don't check on this fantasy basketball league, at least a year or two before that fantasy basketball league, I did in fact win the championship with another one of my friends in that league, and I only lost one game, so. Thought I'd at least bring that up.
Well, that is to say something. And so with that, we're going to end our NBA conversation and actually move on to one of our segments here in the Woodshed we call You Betcha. It's basically where we start talking about some of our picks and locks that we may have. And actually to start it off, because it's his segment, is our friend and subsequent love of our lives, Hunter Horn.
well, thank you. Thank you for that. Alrighty, boys and girls. I know you've been waiting for Big Hunt's hockey locks. We've been a little slow, rough start to the season, but that's okay because we're here to make it happen. So tonight, right, we're taking Panthers over Kings. That's a good value pick. Panthers are not the favorite, but that's why the money's there. They're playing good hockey. They've won 5 in a row. Yes, they're on the road, but the Panthers have proven that they are a team that is able to win on the road. Second, we're going to go ahead and take the Arizona Coyotes over the Columbus Blue Jackets. Believe it or not, Arizona has finally gotten their act together. And all it took was getting kicked out of their stadium. You heard that right. They play at the Arizona State College Stadium because they could no longer afford their arena. Well, after about 6 or 7 years of getting top 5 draft picks, they finally hit the golden winner. And they've got some pretty good squad, additions added on throughout the offseason. And they're looking pretty good this year. I really, you know what? I've got the Coyotes actually sneaking in to like a 7th, 8th seed. So we're going to take them over the Columbus Blue Jackets tonight. Finally, for our last game, this one really fought with me. People were telling me, no, how can you do this? This, that, the other. Well, we're going to do it. We're taking the Vancouver Canucks over the Calgary Flames. The Calgary Flames are really struggling right now. Somehow Vegas has them as the favorite. Don't listen to that nonsense. We're taking the Canucks. The Flames are out the door. Huberdeau wants to be traded. They benched him all night. I've never seen a hockey player get benched before. Like, honestly, I've never seen a guy get moved to the end of the bench by himself and not play a whole period of hockey in the NHL. That was wild. Calgary, Vancouver, let's go. And that was Big Hunt's Hockey Locks.
All right. And Cole, do you have any honorable mentions or any anyone that you want to consider for us? Anyone you have for any of Cole's considerations?
Well, so the thing about that is I appreciate you calling it Cole's considerations. However, I do not pay attention to hockey as much, but I do have a Cole's consideration. Just like you are, Leo, I am, in fact, wearing the colors of my college. Because I did transfer from the first college that I ended up picking, and now I'm going to go to a new college starting in the spring, and their colors are green and gold. So let's go University of South Florida Bulls.
Oh, Darn. You said green and gold. You almost had me there. You almost had me there. I was about to start crying. All right. Well, guys,
I
thanks.
would potentially consider going to Notre Dame, but my family's spending more and more time in Florida, and I'm going to the St. Petersburg campus, not the main campus in Tampa, but
Hey, bro.
the St. Petersburg campus is a good mixture of like a good student body, but still like that
Absolutely.
warm, cozy, small school.
Yeah. No,
So
hey, man, if you got to be somewhere, you got to be in,
we'll see what
in
happens.
the
there.
FLA,
We'll
baby.
show you the pillow that I got from my dorm room if you want.
The
All
body
right.
pillow.
All right. Thanks, fellas. And as I'm getting ready to give out my last thought, I'll see you guys in the dressing room in just a minute. All right, everybody. I just want to give a special shout out today to a very near and dear and great person in my life. My eldest son today turned 19 years old. So I just want to say happy birthday, Leo Valdez III. All right. Now, Antonio, I love you very much. You have grown to be a very strong and independent young man. And most importantly, you're doing really well in college, and I can never be prouder of you. Thanks very much, everybody, for tuning in. This has been your friends, Hunter, Cole, and Leo, joining you and thanking you for joining us with this edition of the Woodshed.
Not a problem, sir. He's a good kid. He's just got to watch his language in front of the ladies.
I'll remind Kevin where he comes from.
Okay, that sounds terrific.
You use foul language in front of a lady?
No, Daddy, no!